Hello, my name is Katie Grant, and I'm going to be speaking to you about the importance of learning a second language. Furthermore, I'm going to be teaching you guys about a way to learn language that is very beneficial. Studies that have been done by neurological psychologists and linguists have shown that immersion learning is the best way to learn language. What is immersion learning? Immersion learning is learning a language or a skill set. It usually applies in language without the help of English or your natural native language. It means you are immersed in the culture and the language. Before we get into the specifics of how to use immersion to learn a second language, we'll talk about the importance and why we should learn a second language. Learning a second language enables people to speak to others of that language. It broadens friendships, it broadens encounters and enriches them, and potential work interactions are greater. Speaking the native language of a person speaks more to their heart, and it shows them that you will have an understanding that goes beyond grammar and communication for the sake of obtaining information. The benefits of learning a second language have been studied within the past 40 to 60 years. Studies have shown that people who have learned a second language are less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease in their later years. Learning a second language increases math, science, and music scores. The possibilities are increased of getting a job or getting a raise compared to a person that only speaks one language. Learning a second language also creates new brain synapses. Those are networks in your brain for information, which helps your memory and your speed of reaction to stimulus. It can also be used as a co-language when speaking with another person in public whenever the language is foreign to the environment that you're in. Getting back to the subject of immersion learning. So why is immersion learning the best way to learn a language? Immersion learning goes deep into the scientific studies of how the brain works and how it acquires language. There is a lot of debate still to this day of how infants and children can acquire language. But we must first study who are the best language learners. The best language learners are babies and children from the ages of 5 and under. That is the most critical time where we learn our languages. During this time, we are having lots of interactions and we're having a lot of listening skills. So during this immersion period, it is important to have a quiet point where you're immersed in this language and you're listening, you're taking information in. Whenever we have children, we have young babies and we're teaching them how to speak, we are still interacting with each other and immersing them in the language that we want them to learn. We do not simplify the language that we speak to each other as adults when babies are around. We may do this with children, with specific words that we want them to know, such as bottle and hungry. But those are the first words that they are able to use and comprehend. When we speak about the anatomy of the brain, we have two areas that have to do with language learning and language production. We have the Wernicke's area in the brain, which is responsible for producing the language. And then we have the Broca's area, which is responsible for understanding and comprehending what a person is saying to us. Most people do not know this. So when you're listening to somebody, you're using one part of your brain. And when you speak back, you're using another part. With immersion, this enables both parts of the brain to be used. All other methods of learning a language, such as going through a list and repeating things and being translated for, do not use both areas. If immersion is done right, you do not need English to learn a language, and I will show you an example of this right now. I am a native language instructor, and I learned a Native American language, the Sac and Fox language, which is called Sauk. I learned it through immersion techniques, and it took me about 9 months to a year to become conversationally fluent. And when I tell people this, they are blown away and they believe that it is extremely hard. But if you practice this and you learn as if you were learning as a child, it makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to show you, and I'm not going to speak English for a bit. Monika Moshwagan. Monika Moshwagan. Moshwagan. Kiachi mohi. Moshwagan benwiken. Moshwagan. Oni Monika Moshwagan. Ak. Akwi Moshwagan. Monika Moshwagan. Aha, Moshwagan. I'm going to speak English again. So, what is this in the Sauk language? Moshwagan. Right. You understood what I was saying. And I did not need to use English. I used visuals and I used props to get my information across to you. And this is how we do this with children. Whenever we speak to them and we have a deliberate conversation with them, like when we say hungry, or sleepy, we use motions to demonstrate what we want and what we're trying to tell them. Is this Moshwagan? No. I used a lot of other words other than Moshwagan, but you understood that this is Moshwagan. I said Monika Moshwagan, but you understood that this was not Monika. This is Moshwagan. So I did not need to simplify my conversation completely. I was using contextual information that you learn later on when you become more fluent. Monika means this is, and if you want to become further fluent in it, you will soon learn that money has to do with the animacy, and you use the word money to describe an inanimate thing, and it goes so much further. So my point about this is that in language learning that we get in a traditional sense or in a school, it seems as though we focus too much on grammar. Students and teachers want to really focus on this money thing, where they want to focus on grammar, they want to focus on animacy and concepts, where you don't have to do that in order to converse. I was telling you, this is a scissors. I asked you, is this scissors or is this scissors? I said ok. You know that ok means no because you already know that this is Moshwagan and this is not, but I also shook my head no. I also said, aha, Moshwagan, by affirming yes with a nod, and giving you positive information on it and using intonation in my voice. This is a good way to use immersion to teach people how to learn, and if it's structured right by people who are teaching you, and if you're willing to do this as a student, this is the best way to learn a language. The best conclusion to this subject that I can give you is that learning a second language is hard. It can be embarrassing and you don't want to make mistakes, but these mistakes are important for how you develop and how you take information in, and how to finesse what you learn later on. Learning a language, especially a second language, is hard, but it doesn't have to be difficult in the sense that it is boring or that you're afraid that you won't remember this in the long run, like how we felt whenever we took high school courses of a second language. Learning a second language can be fun, and you can make it fun. You can use a lot of props, you can make games out of it. The best way to learn in immersion is games, props, role play, and just have fun with it and find people that can support you in this. Thank you for listening.